Alright, before we go into, you'll get the Bioman Monster Trucks and Sleepless All tomorrow.
Yes.
And for now, you're going to get 4 more movies from 2016.
Very much long awaited here on this network.
And all of which are kind of a big deal in one way or the other.
Correct.
Whether it be personally or awards-wise.
We're missing 3 right now, but we're hopefully going to get those before too long.
As far as importance, really, probably too. But
don't you doubt 20th Century Women.
Here we go. We're actually going to start with Patriots today. Which is the Peter Berg movie about the Boston bombing, starring Mark Wahlberg, very shortly after they worked together on Deepwater Horizon. And obviously, 3 years after Lone Survivor. Peter Berg and him are just... Every time you see Peter Berg, Wahlberg's going to be right there now.
Probably had the conversation on this set of Deepwater Horizon. Hey, you want to do this movie?
Yeah, probably.
Wouldn't make
complete
sense to me.
And they were... or they planned them simultaneously.
Possible.
And they're on a good run right now, because those two, I thought, were very good. And now we have Patriots Day. Well, to start off real quick, though, I'm sure one thing you're concerned about is... Some people started to wonder if Peter Berg was kind of pulling an Oliver Stone with this movie. The big question... as soon as the project was announced, everybody was like, is it not too soon? Because everybody was up in arms when Oliver Stone made World Trade Center. And that same year, Paul Greengrass made United 93. And then there was W and Snowden. Everybody thought all these movies were way too soon to already have a movie. And they were thinking the same thing about Peter Berg doing this. On top of the fact that I believe David Gordon Green and Jake Gyllenhaal are making a Boston bombing movie of their own, right now. So...
I believe that is correct.
So yeah, that is a question, but I feel like most people, everybody will find an excuse to be up in arms about something, surely. But if you ask me, when you look at this movie, that probably won't be a question you're asking. So obviously we follow Mark Wahlberg's character, who is just... He's a cop who's kind of a bit out of play because... He may or may not be suspended, depending on who you ask, because he may or may not have kicked another cop in the face.
Yeah.
And thus messed up his leg in the process. And of course, he does the smart thing. One of the first things he does is kick a door in. He immediately regrets that, of course. This opening scene felt like the opening scene of The Negotiator or something. But then, this is only 5 hours... What we're seeing at the beginning is only 5 hours prior to... the marathon.
Right.
So he's practically... This should have been the movie this week called Sleepless.
Yeah.
but alas, we'll get to that tomorrow. But in the meantime, and of course he's there and he's kind of... This is one of those movies where we really could have followed pretty much anybody.
A little bit.
Yeah, this is one of those cases. I noticed this in Lone Survivor as well. Mark Wahlberg is one of those actors that you could call a movie star, but doesn't seem to care whether he's the focus or not.
No.
Because for
not at all.
The only time he's really the main focus of Lone Survivor is when he's the Lone Survivor, which is the last 40 minutes of that movie. And here, this is really an ensemble movie, more or less. I actually think the star of this movie is Peter Berg, personally. But we have quite a big cast here, and it doesn't necessarily feel like... We start on Wahlberg, and we kind of see, the introduction to J.K. Simmons and the people who will be affected by the explosion.
Right.
But it does obviously feel like Wahlberg is supposed to be kind of our central character, especially since his name is above the title, every time you see it. His name and the title are always side by side, Wahlberg and Peter Berg, for instance. Just always together. But then there is... there is some stuff here at the beginning, too, where you kind of start to wonder what kind of movie this is going to be, because going in, you probably know the large focus of the movie is catching the 2 guys that did it. But we do spend a lot of time on... I was describing to you what I think it is the scenes in Sully, when we focused on the passengers just from out of nowhere, right in the middle of the movie, and we didn't even know who they were when we first met them. This movie kind of handles people involved in the crisis the right way that Sully didn't. And that is the fact that the first 15 minutes or so of the movie is most people's introduction. Like, the only people we don't get introductions to right away are, like, the FBI guys and Kevin Bacon and those guys. But then, of course, we're going to eventually get to the moment to where all these people that we're following are either killed or severely injured or somehow affected emotionally by what happens. And the explosion only takes about 15 minutes into the movie to happen. And when that happens, the movie takes off and never stops. And I mean that in a good way. Like a really, really good way. While maintaining its sensitivity, of course, because it does clearly have a heart for everything that happened to these people. That's why I was saying we get some really substantial introductions to them. You may think this might be a little out of place, and you may think it's kind of jumbled, because we get all these introductions, and we get to know all these people, and then the explosion happens, and they're taken to the hospital, and that seems to be it. And you might think, oh, well, okay, we got to know these people for no reason. You kind of have to wait, but there is closure for everybody, where it's almost kind of like a bookend to the movie. Because it would have been really weird for this movie to be what it is in the entire middle section, and to be cutting back and forth to something that's supposed to be emotional. Because from the time the bomb goes off to the ending, this is a straight-up thriller.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, so it was, I thought the way he distributed everything was really well done, and probably the best it could have been done without things seeming out of place. Because, I mean, there are scenes in the middle after all that's gone down, like, the couple meeting at the Chinese restaurant. But, it's not till assuming you don't know the events, like, all the way, you're probably wondering what the significance of these people are, and you think, well, they're just going to put another love story in the middle of this. But it's only setting up that one of these characters is extremely crucial. So it's a necessity as well. And it's kind of really the crisis itself that brings them together anyway. So it's all kind of still here, but like I said, it's really nice that he was able to kind of keep the two aspects of the movie separate. Because we get plenty of emotional payoff at the end. From the closure that the injured people get to... yes, this is one of those movies where we get, like... I tend to make fun of it, usually, but...
it worked here.
It is one of those true stories where we actually see the real people at the end. But the thing is it's not just the cliche footage thing. It's actually, like, the people behind the movie interviewing them. So it's so it's not just they lifted interviews they've given on talk shows or whatever. These are, like, exclusive interviews that are in the movie at the end, to my understanding. And so this whole middle section now, like I said, you gotta kind of be sensitive a little bit given how, real these events are and recent they are. But it's so hard to not praise this movie for just how, like, it took, like, a true story like this to make, usually there will be times when a real life event is so poorly handled that you'd much rather a fictional movie. This goes on the exact opposite end of the spectrum with that. And it actually shows that real life can really be more intense than anything fictional ever could be. Even if you're just sitting in a movie theater. Because they're just one scene after the other in this movie is just so ungodly intense.
Oh my God, yes.
And it's built up so well. There's a very long scene kind of in the middle where it's kind of like, we feel like this can only lead in one direction. And it seems like, danger and death are imminent, but as the scene goes on, your thoughts on that kind of go back and forth. And you're really not quite sure exactly how it's going to go. You just know it's going to go in one way or the other to the extreme. And the way the scene just really, really kind of plays itself out, just really gradually, and kind of toying with you about how it might be going in this direction, but maybe not, but maybe so. And it's really crazy. And then there are at least a couple of shootouts. One of which is just probably one of the best movie scenes of the year. J.K. Simmons' big scene. My God, and I've been praising this ever since we saw it last night. It was like, you can tell J.K. Simmons was hopping those fences with no stunt double.
It was great. It was the first time he was like selling the injury and everything like that. And next time it's like, I don't care. I'm just gonna jump over this fence.
Like I said, we've seen that stuff. You know, we know that J.K. Simmons is jacked now for his age, especially. But he really threw himself into this. He was like, there are a lot of really good performances in this. But J.K. Simmons, little as he's in it, really stood out to me. Because like at the very beginning, he's like Reginald VelJohnson in Die Hard, and then by the time like he reaches his big scene, he's like an action hero.
Everybody gets to shine in this.
And
movie,
I don't mean he
too.
just gunned down Carl at the end of Die Hard. I mean like a real action hero. And how old is J.K. Simmons?
Good.
I don't want to guess in fear of overshooting it, but
62.
Wow. Yeah.
He just turned 62 a couple days ago. So happy birthday, J.K. Simmons.
But yes, Wahlberg, of course, is very good here. I was saying when I talked about Deepwater Horizon, sometimes Wahlberg can almost kind of seem like a boring choice for an action movie. Like it's kind of, like you see him cast in an action movie, and you're like, yeah, of course it's him. Like that's just such an easy choice. It's like, we'll cast Mark Wahlberg as the action lead. Dude gets to do some real acting here.
Yeah, he does.
The scene when he goes home and has to tell Michelle Monaghan what he saw. That's big stuff. That's big stuff for Marky Mark. I mean, I know. As far back as Boogie Nights, we know he's a very capable actor. But lately, it's only every so often he gets to really show what he's had since Boogie Nights. But yeah, that's a real powerhouse scene by itself, and he's really got that. He's got that intensity in him and that kind of sense of urgency in him that really makes the scenes feel real, and they're just how, you know, urgent everything is. I didn't want to repeat myself. That's all I can think of.
Right.
There are some things in here where it's kind of, I'm not so sure. Like, there is one particular character that we meet with all the other introductions. And he's here after the explosion. But it's just like, even if you know or even if you don't know, it's kind of like this character maybe had a couple of extra... I mean, I know you have to kind of have those scenes to establish the characters so that it hits you emotionally when something happens to them.
Of course.
But there are other times where that can be overdone, as you can see in a lot of other movies. In this one particular character's case, I kind of felt like he maybe had one or two extra scenes that maybe didn't necessarily have to be there, but they exist solely so that when we get to that moment for him, it's a big emotional moment. It's like, I think we could have felt bad, even if we didn't have one or two of those scenes in there. I kind of felt a little hammered in for that one guy, but... But for the most part, they handle that really well. There are some cases, like, when the couple's in bed, there are, like, 3 different lingering shots on the guy's leg that we know he's gonna lose. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
It's like, I wasn't thinking about that at first, but then when we got the shot, like, again, I was like, you know what? I'll bet he's one of the guys that... I'll bet that's not around for very long. Much longer. But it's fine. Overall, it's perfectly fine. There's just a little tiny things in there sometimes like that. Now, as far as the bombing scene itself, this is Peter Berg's Saving Private Ryan moment.
Yeah.
This is let's get right in the middle of this. Let's get as absolutely positively close to this as we can.
In every way possible.
So that we know what really, really went down. There are cases where we are literally, like, the lens is resting against what we're watching. And it's he does that thing where, there are times in the movie where it's kind of hard to tell. I'm not sure if he used any, like, real footage, but there's a thing where there's a lot of footage that's recreated to make it look like video camera footage, and it's kind of cutting back and forth. And that kind of adds, depending on how much of that was recreated and how much of it's real, I would imagine for sensitivity purposes, not a lot of it is real, but maybe, I don't know. Some people just like to really go for it like that. But what I'm assuming is recreated is done really well, and it really kind of adds like yeah, there's a very good chance you're gonna feel nauseous during this scene, even if you sat through Hacksaw Ridge without blinking.
It's
I
nasty.
feel like you'll it's
watch
right
it.
it's right in there.
You have to watch it multiple times too, because they're checking the footage to find
Yeah.
out what happens. You have to watch it over and over again.
And it's not just them. It's like, this is the criticism that Gibson faced too. I don't know if it's getting this criticism, but I'm sure somewhere it is. It could probably be seen as reveling in the carnage, given how up close and personal we get to it. But I feel like this movie has way too much of a heart to kind of dismiss it like that, because there's the whole segment with the kid
Oh wow.
that probably could have just been dismissed and like mentioned once. But they make it like a whole thing. We get the shots of there is a cop whose sole job it is to just stand there and guard that body.
That just got
And
sad.
we
More
just
sad
see-
every time.
We just see how dead inside the guy is, that this is all his job is in this, is to just make sure this dead kid isn't moved, while they have no idea where his family is. And it's little touches like that, like adding that guy. I don't even remember if he had lines, but just seeing that guy standing there is a really big emotional moment, and really kind of shows you just one aspect of the tragedy this just created. Going back to performances after all that, I think we all knew that John Goodman was going to be great here.
Of course.
And that's the thing too. You look at John Goodman and Kevin Bacon. You look at the Death Sentence cast, and you see that. The thing here is we have Kevin Bacon, who's desperately trying to remain in control of this whole thing, because he's the FBI guy that's in charge of this. And you have John Goodman, who's the commissioner. And he is, and obviously in these moments and all this, this hectic place we're in, something that's going to be really crucial here is genuine displays of anger. And if you want a genuine display of anger, John Goodman's your guy.
His character is actually what Gyllenhaal's movie is going to be based off of. Like
Really?
his experiences.
Because we get quite a bit of that here. I think Kevin Bacon's probably in this more than John Goodman is.
Right.
But Goodman just evokes his character so well. We get a really good taste of where his character's at.
Bacon just pops in and out of the script most of the time.
But Bacon's here too and does his job quite well. There's obviously, like I was just talking about with Manchester by the Sea, given the area we're in, there's going to be a lot of language in the movie.
Yeah.
And the idea is the delivery of that to make it seem natural. I wouldn't necessarily call Kevin Bacon a natural swearer, but because I've noticed this thing, and I noticed it here too. I feel like there's a lot of Kevin Bacon movies where when he's given the job to say the word fucking, he gives it his all.
You can get that option very often.
And there's the Kevin Bacon way is he will be in mid-sentence and he will have to say fucking something. And his way of doing it in like every movie is he will say the sentence casually and then he will scream fucking with all of his might, and then there's a pause before he says the next word after.
He's reflecting in his mind what he just said.
He gets to do that here too. Like I said, I
himself.
feel like he's done that in a lot of movies, and I noticed it again here.
Yeah, I can see that.
So yes, the cast is great. Michelle Monaghan kind of gets a bit thrown away. It's a little weird she's in Sleepless more than she's in this. But
Yeah, she's more important than Sleepless, though.
but she does have a crucial role here. Like I said, she's mainly there just to kind of support Wahlberg through his big scene. His big emotional scene, anyway. So yeah, obviously, I think very highly of this movie, and I feel like like I said, I know it's probably going to face criticism in one way or another for the way it handles stuff, because you're not going to please everybody, especially with territory like this. And there's a lot of people who are complaining, like, is it one of those America fuck yeah movies? And my response to that is, not really. It's a Boston fuck yeah movie.
Yeah.
Does that bother you?
That is the best way to put it, too.
And then when it gets to the end, they talk about all the other tragedies, including
Orlando and Paris.
Yeah. And it's a whole uniting thing here.
Exactly.
The whole last 5 to 10 minutes of the movie is talking about the real event after the movie itself is pretty much over. And yeah, it's really, I feel like it was all done really well, while at the same time really making a movie out of it, like a movie out of it.
Plus, they also showed the bombers, like, before everything happened. They showed what they were doing and everything, so went into their backstory a little bit.
But at the same time, there's still kind of a lack of motivation we're given.
Right.
But at the same time, it's one of those cases of, I guess it was lose-lose. Either you're going to get complaints that they don't really show much motivation, or you're going to get complaints that, were they just going to guess? Were they going to write their own backstory for them? I don't think that would have gone over well. Because it was Berg and, was it Matt Cook, I believe, was the co-writer?
Yeah.
Yeah, Matt Cook, the writer of 999, which we'll get to as well.
Yeah.
Once again, so much Sleepless attaches itself to Patriots Day.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm a huge fan of this movie, and Berg, I was so impressed with Berg here. Like, he's been a good action director for some time, and like I said, we all know he only did Battleship because that's the only way Universal was going to let him make Lone Survivor. So you can't necessarily hold Battleship against him. But he's shown, like, a movie I love is The Rundown.
Yeah, The Rundown's really good.
And a great action movie. So he really handles this stuff well, and he's made not only a movie that handles these events well, or as well as I imagine from the distance that I'm at. He was able to really tell these events while also making one of the best thrillers, at least this year. So yeah, that was... I figured this would be decent, especially after Deepwater Horizon, but I was not expecting something this fucking good.
No.
This is a great movie.
Well, I mean, I've been a Peter Berg supporter since The Great White Hype, obviously, and I have to bring that up because
his first movie as a director was very bad.
Very bad thing, something we've talked about a lot here on this network. I will say right now that if you know me, you probably know that stuff that's true to life, that's on the big screen, sometimes it doesn't work. And I don't have that connection, I guess you would say sometimes. This movie got me greatly, and I was very happy with the result. It was very well done. Not something I would normally go with either, and I loved it.
We're going to get to this at the end of the video, too, to give you a hint. This was a really good year for true stories.
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely. Big surprises, too. We'll get to that as well in another video.
Okay. So, let's move on.
Yes.
Our second movie is going to be La La Land. You ever heard of that movie? So, if you're keeping up with the award season, you may possibly be really bored with La La Land right now. So, we came across it.
Finally.
And, let's talk a little bit about La La Land. The movie that's probably going to be... I mean, let's face it. This is probably going to be one of those movies that's going to do we're going to talk musicals specifically. You can use other movies as an example, but to use a musical, this is probably going to be a West Side Story sweep at the Oscars.
Oh, for sure.
West Side Story won, I believe, 10 Oscars. Honestly, wouldn't be surprised if this is another one of those sweep years.
This movie's going to break records.
So the question is, and I really hate that because... you always want to see a movie before the hype sets in, because as much as you try to push it out of your mind, as much as you really, really try to just focus on one thing and one thing only, hype is kind of an unavoidable monster when it's this much. So you go in and you just kind of try to... Well, the thing, though, is I didn't have too many expectations, because I was never really... Because the weird thing is that I love Emma Stone so much. Like, oh my god.
Right.
And I loved Whiplash.
Yes.
I loved Whiplash almost as much as I love Emma Stone. Probably more. We just talked about J.K. Simmons.
Exactly. And he's in this too.
And yeah. And So, for some reason, I didn't... And the movies it was getting compared to, like Singing in the Rain, I love. But for some reason, my hype was not there.
Yeah, I noticed that when I was talking to you about it, and it always blew my mind.
But I was okay with that because I kind of felt the same way going into Whiplash.
Right.
But Whiplash exceeds expectations. And for a movie that small, that's surprising. For a movie that is as big as movies get, I don't know. I don't know if that's in favor of it or against it. It's really hard to tell. But I'm seeing things now where people are saying it exceeds the hype. It's like, are you fucking kidding me? That's impossible! But I try to push this all out, and I just watched the movie for what it was. Surrounded by people, because I guarantee that showing was sold out.
Legit sellout theater, because we had to hear it for the first 15 minutes of nothing but people looking for seats. And the guy shining the light in my face every 5 seconds, because I was on the aisle.
So it begins, and it's clear they're shaking things up immediately because we get a new Summit logo. Mm-hmm. A very old-timey looking Summit logo. The Summit logo is just fucking mountains. So it's like, how are they going to change that? But that's what they did. And then we get the CinemaScope thing. And it becomes the whole, yep, this is Singing in the Rain. This is The Bandwagon. This is An American in Paris. Throw West Side Story in there. I think there even was a West Side Story homage. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So the big question is it going to be its own thing, or is it just going to be those movies? The first thing they did that I was really struck by, that's a good thing, is when you immediately think of, hey, we're going to recreate the style of movies like Singing in the Rain and The Bandwagon or American in Paris or whatever, you immediately think period movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a very cool little twist on things that this is present day.
Yeah. Makes it even better.
Because it's present day while feeling very 1950s at the same time.
Yeah.
They're showing you the very, very movie version of LA.
For sure.
Which of course is its point, because this is one of those movies that's supposed to feel like a movie.
It's Tinseltown.
So yeah, I feel so bitter towards it going in. I know that's entirely unfair, but I'm trying, people. Okay.
I'll help. Don't worry.
So shut up. You and La La Land need to shut up right now. I'm sure everybody has heard more than enough from you about La La Land, and that was before you saw it. I'm sorry.
I can elaborate.
So yes, feel free.
I'm going to.
So we have it's a very basic story. It's a very basic love story. It's all about this movie is all about the execution. And it's one of those cases where you could tell it was one of those things where another reason I didn't feel, I think I even mentioned this in one of the prediction videos. Another reason I wasn't so sure about this movie way back like in the summer was because I found it very hard to believe that a guy like Damien Chazelle could strike so much gold by making Whiplash and somehow repeat it and potentially top it. But then you realize, how great Whiplash is and all that, and how great it turned out in all aspects.
Oh, yeah.
Like critical praise, audience praise, awards, all of it. And then you realize that Whiplash was what Damien Chazelle was doing to basically kill time until he could get La La Land made.
Yep.
And then that's when you think, okay, obviously something was put into this. Something gargantuan was put into this movie from its creator.
He's so young, so he's just gonna get better, too. That's what makes it even better.
Damien Chazelle has made Whiplash and La La Land, and he's probably going to become the youngest director to ever win the Oscar for Best Director.
Almost guaranteed.
And he is 5 years older than me.
31 years old.
Excuse me while I kill myself.
I said you should aspire to be Damien Chazelle right now.
So, well, before we get into that, let's talk about the fact that our leads here are Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone.
Yeah.
Much like Mark Wahlberg and Peter Berg are attached to the hip now. Ever since Crazy Stupid Love, through Gangster Squad, I feel like there was something else too, and then this. Or there was something they were supposed to do together, I think. But, And yes, we will go into Emma Stone, but honestly, before I do, I would like to talk about Gosling, actually. Because Gosling has a couple of performances here and there that I really like.
Drive.
Like Drive. He was really good in Blue Valentine.
Yes.
I love his performance in Half Nelson. But honestly, for the most part, especially lately, I could just take or leave him. So, A Place Beyond the Pines, he's great in. Place Beyond the Pines might be his best performance, actually. But the thing here is, going into this, I wasn't sure, because he was, for a while, he was on kind of the back burner there, and he was kind of, like, everybody was talking about the movie, everybody was talking about Damien Chazelle, the musical numbers, and Emma Stone. It kind of seemed like Gosling was an afterthought. And I was surprised by how much I really liked him in this, especially with the kind of character he plays, where it's kind of, you could kind of take his character as somebody who's a bit hard to like, especially for the first 15 minutes or so there, when he's just, he's just one of those guys.
Starving artist, but he's starving musician in this case.
Very hipstery. But he actually finds a way to make this character likable.
Yeah.
Like the whole stool thing with his sister.
That was great.
That could have been a moment where you were like, oh my god, this character's unbearable. But it was like, I get where this character's kind of coming from. And I kind of like him anyway.
He's kind of charming there.
And then as the movie goes on, even though, yes, he and Emma Stone do the, oh, I hate you, oh, and then...
Of course.
Dates, and she's got the uptight boyfriend she doesn't really like, all that. But then we kind of resolve that in the first half.
Yeah.
And then I've been telling people, one of my favorite scenes in the movie honestly comes from Gosling, and it's not even a musical number. It's got music in it, but it's not a musical number, and that's the scene when they go to the club. And he's basically teaching her about jazz, and he's kind of saying how each individual guy kind of has his own thing going on. If it were up to me, that would be Gosling's Oscar clip, honestly. Like, forget, all the big emotional numbers and all that, or, like, the big physical scenes or whatever. This scene where he's explaining jazz is, like, one of the best scenes of his career.
I loved it.
I really love that scene. And then it does get very big emotion-wise, and we'll go to Emma Stone, and then I'll talk about some criticisms. Obviously, Emma Stone is amazing.
Yes.
There is one particular scene that's going to be her big standout scene, even though she's emoting through the whole movie. But there's one particular, and really, in any circumstance, whether good or bad, anybody can just emote big.
Right.
So the idea is this one scene, her first audition scene that we kind of see, where she goes through a whole bunch of stuff all at once. Because when she comes in, she's the shy but still determined actress that really wants this part. And then we've seen her practicing this throughout the movie up to this scene. And she's just kind of, she really wants to be here, and she really wants this part, and she's just, the plucky actress type.
Right.
And then immediately, without a break in the scene, she goes into her audition, and her audition is this phone call where she starts off happy, and then, like, her heart gets broken, and then she has to show, like, a whole different side. And then when you realize she's gone from completely one side of emotion to the other, just kind of seamlessly, she gets cut off, and she has to snap out of it. And then there's that kind of confusion and dumbfoundedness where she's kind of like, and then you realize just the whole array. She went through like the whole catalog here, in this one unbroken shot. A lot of people were saying the song is her "I Dreamed a Dream" moment. Yeah. I honestly feel like this songless scene is her "I Dreamed a Dream" moment.
The song does help, though.
Yeah, that'll be like her clip for every award show ever.
So like it's nominated.
So yes, the performances are great, but what I was talking about there about the emotion, if there's one, and I'm trying to figure out how to I've been trying to figure out how to put this for a week. We saw this 6 days ago, almost a week ago.
Yes, I didn't see it again.
And it was like, is there a possibility? Okay, look, fuck off. First off, I'm going to say first off, I actually said fuck off.
You did.
First off, I would just like to point out, I have already said, I realize that this movie knows it's a movie, and it's going to be big. It's a big musical. It's the last 20 minutes of An American in Paris.
Right.
Is this movie. I get that. My trouble was, I was wondering if this movie is too big. Like, too big for its own good, honestly. Because this movie is 2 hours and 8 minutes. That's 2 hours and 8 minutes, you know. And there are typically, you know, musical numbers spread throughout a movie and all that. And the numbers are big. The numbers are really big, especially the opening one. Everybody's just all about that opening scene.
The Golden Globes parodied it.
Yeah, all the way back to the dudes being in the back of the truck and all the one-shot thing, because one take is all the fucking rage now. And it's all big and it's all great, but here's the problem, is even the scenes that aren't musical numbers feel really, really big. Like, from the acting, to, like, the emoting, to just the set pieces in general. It's all great, and you can tell. It's kind of like when you praise Wes Anderson movies for the attention to detail.
Right.
But how when Wes Anderson makes a movie, you can tell he thought about every single inch of what that screen's going to show in one frame. And you can tell Chazelle did the same thing here.
Right.
But here, it's almost overwhelming in a negative way. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, not too much. I mean, it's always something to be admired. Like, you can always, like, I mean, you never want to shun it for just having, you know, you could just tell how much of a labor of love this movie is, and how he just knew he had to go as big as possible, because that's the way these movies were. The movies he's homaging and kind of making his own thing out of. And it just kind of felt like too much after a while, especially after 2 hours and 8 minutes. Especially when some scenes that shouldn't even be necessarily, like, it did not stop for a breath at all. And I know I just praised Patriots Day for something like that. But for something like this, and it just felt like it was just constantly being thrown at us to the point that it was kind of, it gets, in a movie like this, the whole idea is to stay alive. That's why it's like this. That's why it's so big, because the idea is to just stay alive and be a live wire through that entire 2 hours. But the movie's problem is, about after the first hour, it's worn itself out. And another problem that makes that really weird is, did you by any chance notice that we had some really great numbers? We had that opening number, we had the poster, the two of them with the purple and orange sky.
Yes.
Once we reach the second half and we get really into them and their relationship, the numbers are very one-sided. Because it's kind of like, suddenly the movie's not really that. It's really like a relationship movie, and You're Holding Me Back From My Dreams movie. And the kind of liveliness that it had, while still remaining here in a way that's not really warranted in these particular moments, it felt very, like, one-sided. Like, suddenly it was one movie, and then suddenly it was another, but still never kind of adjusts. And then we get that the John Legend subplot, where I was talking to somebody who loves the movie about this, about how kind of the John Legend plot kind of seems to take us in a whole other way, and how when I was thinking, like, where are the numbers in the second half, and then you remember, well, there's John Legend songs, but John Legend's songs are, and I know the point is a distance because it's Sebastian kind of selling out,
yes,
and kind of going in that these are the songs that don't really fit him. But at the same time, it is so out of touch with the movie it's in. It's like when I'm trying to remember the musical numbers, I don't even think about the John Legend scenes. I was like, oh yeah, those are in there too. Not to mention that this is kind of a backhanded compliment, but it was kind of like, so the John Legend songs are supposed to be Sebastian selling out, and they're supposed to kind of be the down point of the movie, where it's like, this is Sebastian at his lowest. Because even when he was poor and he had nothing, at least he wasn't selling out. So him working with John Legend's pretty much his ground zero, his rock bottom. And it's like, well, I'm going to be honest with you. Those John Legend songs are pretty good. It's like, I know the movie's saying, oh, don't sell out. But it's like, this is selling out. He's doing okay. Because this is not bad music.
That's not the point of the story.
I know. It's the whole, but Sebastian's clung to the classics. It must be like the classics or it's not real.
He wants to keep jazz alive.
But, it just felt, it just felt kind of jumbled to me and kind of very, very uneven there. And like I was just telling you today while we were waiting for movies, it's like, looking back on it, the second half of this movie is kind of a slog. No. Especially compared to the first half. When it's kind of... Yeah, it's almost like it's submitted to its plot. When, as I was just saying at the start of this, the whole point is that... Like, do you remember what the plot of An American in Paris was? Gene Kelly was in Paris.
Right.
The end. What's the plot of West Side Story? Romeo and Juliet. Who cares? What's the plot of Singing in the Rain? Movies are getting bigger. Movies aren't what they used to be. Okay, and Gene Kelly's upset by that and losing work. As are his colleagues. Do you really think about the plots? What the fuck was the Bandwagon about? The Bandwagon is 2 hours of musical numbers with, like, no breathing room. None whatsoever. There is one number in the Bandwagon that's, like, 45 minutes long.
Good lord.
Yeah. But that's the thing, is that's because that's all the Bandwagon was. It didn't run out of steam. The numbers are how the Bandwagon told its story. That's how La La Land starts, but then it's just that.
I just think you have to follow the relationship and how it keeps degenerating slowly but surely because of things that keep happening.
that's the thing. I don't know. But having said all this, that probably makes it sound like I'm not this movie's biggest fan.
I know a lot of people hate it more than you do.
I do like this movie, by the way. There are great movies that have slogs in them. There are really good movies that have parts in them that are just like, oh, well, there's this. Sure. And this is definitely one of those movies where I know this seems like a cop-out, but no matter how you feel about the movie overall, if you can't at least acknowledge it as an achievement, you're not paying attention.
Right.
That's. I mean, you can't. This is not a movie you can just dismiss.
Not even close.
If this, I'm gonna be really bored this award season when this is just taking things left and right.
It's gonna be amazing.
But once all is said and done and we're out of this award season, you'll look back and you'll think that won 10 Oscars, that won 11 Oscars. I get it. It's like, yeah, it was tough through award season, but when you look back on it, it'll be like, yeah, I understand now. Just like when you look back at West Side... Like, people are pissy that West Side Story won as many as it did. I'm not. I'm not pissed that West Side Story won 10 Oscars.
Not at all.
So I feel like it'll go down in history as that. I do still feel like if there's one movie that's a classic in the making this year, it's Fences.
Yeah.
But still, I do feel like this movie is gonna set a place for itself as something to be long remembered. And it is very much an achievement, especially for a 31-year-old director. Fresh off a movie like Whiplash. You make movies like Whiplash and then you crash and burn. That's how it normally goes. But, like I said, the fact that Whiplash was... I mean, not me personally, but I mean, if you look at it as far as his achievements as a director, the fact that Whiplash was just him warming up. It's like, okay, dude, Chazelle, when's your stopping point? Like, where are you going from here? Like, so, like he said, like, he was talking at the round table. I was very much curious why his name is on The Last Exorcism 2. He straight up said at the round table, I wrote some shitty movies to make money, and I will acknowledge them. He didn't say them by name at the round table out of respect, but I was like, I know damn well you're talking about The Last Exorcism 2. Let's not forget his name's on 10 Cloverfield Lane, too.
Yeah.
So... I hope he wasn't talking about that. That would suck.
Nah,
but yes, I can get behind it, sure. But there are still some things in there that irk me a bit. Like there are cases where it seems like they're less relying on the emotion they can evoke themselves And there are a few times in this movie where to get a reaction out of the audience, they use a fake out. There are like 3 times in this movie where you're like, oh, that happened. And you're like, oh, well, it was just that. Oh, good. But then the other way, too, where it's like, oh, that's this and this. Oh, that's not what I thought. Oh, what a bummer.
It goes 500 Days of Summer.
And that's where it's kind of like, yeah, that's cheap. That's a really cheap way to get your audience to react. It's like, maybe play it up in your own way and get a real reaction out of them instead of going, oh, it's this, but oh, no, it's not, just to get them to go, oh, now I'm bummed. Like, bum them out yourself, dude. Okay, so, but yes, it's definitely very admirable for what it is, and it's still a very good movie, for sure. Like I said, it'll still, if you're really paying attention to the award season, you might get a little tired of it, but time will this is one of those movies where time will definitely tell. And it'll be one of those movies I'm sure I'll want to reevaluate, like, a year from now.
Guaranteed.
Like, I'll call you up and I'll say, hey, how about La La Land gets another review a year from now?
Alright.
So, but in the meantime, I think I admire it a lot more than I really particularly, like, it's really that second half where it just felt like one movie and then suddenly it's everybody's fucking,
So real quick, before we end this review, obviously, I have to say something. Especially on
very
this one.
quickly, please.
Don't worry. I heard about this movie, and immediately I was intrigued of the concept.
Shouldn't what you're about to say be in another video? Or?
No, I'm doing a short version of it. So I waited forever to see when it was actually going to come out. Finally found out it was coming out this past year, and we had the hardest time finding it. It was never getting any closer, and
It's still not at our theater, even after the goal.
No, it still doesn't.
Even after the Golden Globes.
Which is funny you mentioned how you can't just dismiss it, because every day, and I know this for a fact, people are asking when it's going to come there, and my response is, here's a website, if you complain enough, we will get the movie, because it's happened with Michael Moore movies in the past. So, please, keep complaining. But the thing is, it makes my job a whole lot easier. But honestly, I just loved the movie from the second it started. I had my cookie dough bites and my frozen Mountain Dew, and I was ready to enjoy myself. And I had my mouth gaping wide open the whole opening scene.
That was just pure entertainment right there. They got to watch me tie my shoe while you talked about La La Land off camera.
Right.
Pure entertainment.
Exactly. I love this from the moment it started to the moment it ended. Everything all the way to the end. And I have to say, after all these years, it's nice to see that Guy Patterson still knows where to find some good jazz.
Tom Everett Scott. I do have one thing to add to that. Our third movie is Live by Night. Ben Affleck's new movie I was very hyped for until I wasn't so completely sure. Because this movie happened very quickly amidst all his Batman stuff. And so I went and I read about half of the book.
Because he does this now every once in a while.
Because it's him revisiting Dennis Lahane again, as he did with Gone Baby Gone. And of course, he wrote the screenplay himself, which, as he showed with The Town, he can adapt a book like nobody's business.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing. I love The Town so much. You don't even know.
Yeah, we do. We have a video of it. It's a versus.
And, this is kind of him channeling Michael Mann again.
Yeah, big time.
With The Town, had a lot of heat in it. And you scared me for a second. You mentioned Public Enemies.
It looked like it just by the vibe of the last trailer I saw.
Until the very first scene, and you're like, oh no, not at all. This movie is actually killing them softly.
Yep.
Starts with the robbing of a poker game. And then he falls in love with Sienna Miller. Or he was already in love with Sienna Miller, who happens to be the woman of the gangster that he may... Well, no, a gangster he gets really mixed up with. He doesn't necessarily work for him.
No. Just a gangster. Like the gangster.
Reading the book, I was like, who the fuck is playing Albert White? Because there was nothing on IMDb about it when I read the book, and now I'm not sure if I know that guy or not, but I really like that guy. He really kind of has that classic gangster feel going really well. The guy that played Massa as well. I liked that, how he was able to kind of grab people that... Because there are recognizable faces in this, like Zoe Saldana and Chris Cooper and Elle Fanning and Chris Messina and...
He's a TV guy.
Yeah. Okay. I liked that for like the big gangsters, he went with people that you may not recognize right away.
Oh yeah.
I thought that was really cool and really kind of put you in those characters even more. Because they both just had such the look for this era. I really like that. And the movie goes from there, and I was surprised, honestly, because the thing is that I only got, like I just said, I only got halfway through the book. And
Why'd you stop?
Typically, Dennis Lahane can really, really hook me. Mystic River is like one of my favorite books ever.
Oh yeah.
But the thing is that for some reason I just really was not that into. I got as far as I think it was about Chris Cooper's first scene in the movie. That's how far I got in the book.
Oh wow.
And it wasn't even necessarily that scene itself that cut me off. It was just all the way up to that I wasn't really that into it. Then again, there's stuff like it's really stretched out. Like his prison stint at the beginning of the movie is like 2 minutes of movie, and it's like 40 pages of book. And that's more where his tie-ins to Masa come in, as opposed to just kind of right before. And there's his brother's a lot more of a crucial character. So I was surprised when it started and it was going how faithful he was to the book there, more or less, even though he was obviously chopping it down. I imagine the town has a director's cut that's like a half hour longer that has a lot of the stuff that was taken out of the movie that was in the book. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a cut like that for this too. But we'll find out. So yeah, I was really wondering what he was going to do, because the book was only half interesting, and the character Joe Coughlin really wasn't that much. So I was like, what's he going to do? And the start of it was, you could kind of tell immediately he was going to make a lot of changes, because Joe Coughlin in the book is like 19. And Affleck plays him through the whole movie. So you know he's making changes for sure. And I think there's like a whole Joe Coughlin series or something, kind of like Patrick Kenzie. But yeah, as a character that's really not that interesting on paper, at least from what I read, I feel like Affleck treated him pretty well and kind of brought him to life in a much more vivid way on screen. As long as you're not attached to the idea he was originally 19, you can get past that pretty quickly. And there's stuff, and he's definitely got kind of that quality to him, where I know some people don't like the fact that he always casts himself, and how he could really get, if maybe his movies would be even greater if he got somebody maybe even more qualified for parts. But he's never bothered me so far, being in his movies. Once again, he's especially good in the town. But I do like the aspects he added to this character that do make him more interesting than he is on the page. Apologies to Dennis Lahane, but that's just how it goes. And there's like the lines like, are you threatening me with people more powerful than you? Then what the fuck am I talking to you for? Scenes like that, like Road to Perdition scenes.
Yeah, that's the vibe I was getting several times during the movie.
And then there's the ending, too.
Mm.
I actually heard two ladies coming out of it while we were waiting for the Bye Bye Man to start, and they were making that comparison to Road to Perdition.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, there are a lot of things in here. Like I said, I do really like the portrayal of some of the people in the book by actors that we don't typically recognize. The thing when Albert White's attacking him and he's like licking his lips and shit. It's like from another actor that may have been really over the top, but it's like I really liked this guy. He's so villainous. I love it. And speaking of that, you will probably notice that I don't know how people feel necessarily, like maybe Argo, for instance. Argo was the 70s. This, well, it's got some really nice period touches to it, like the production design, the costume design especially. Some of those Sienna Miller costumes are really good looking.
Ybor Sildy looks amazing too.
Even though it does have those period details, I don't know that this is the kind of movie you want to see if you're looking to get sucked into a world like that. Because even though it is set in that world and it looks nice, the movie still has a very modern feel to it. Did you notice that?
Oh yeah, totally.
Especially in the action scenes, like if you want a chase scene Like, if you want a really well put together chase scene, Ben Affleck's your dude.
Oh yeah.
This is gonna be half me praising the town again. I'm sorry, but I mean that the chase after the nun heist in the town is just holy shit. And there's definitely some good action scenes here too. Some of them might seem a little cluttered than his other action scenes in other movies, but for the most part, they worked for me really well. And then there's some other familiar faces where if you don't watch Ben Affleck's other movies, maybe you won't recognize them. Like the guy that plays Corwin Earl in Gone Baby Gone, he was the holy bartender in Dogma.
Yes.
Is the guy that's the racist guy that keeps threatening him. I liked that little subplot. It's like he's one of those characters where you're just waiting for something terrible to happen, and you're so happy when it does. He loves casting him as guys that have that.
He comes off like a Dick Tracy villain. He just really does.
And there are also similar faces. Maybe you thought you were seeing things. You weren't. The guy in the barber chair that gets shot at the very beginning. Yeah, that was Titus Welliver. His part in the book, he's like the guy that basically Joe worked for and like worked up with. And then he gets assassinated in the barber chair. No, the movie cut him right out. The only shot of Titus Welliver in this movie is his dead body in a chair getting shot. It's like, wow, he's getting smaller and smaller parts as we go, isn't he? So, yes. And what else is there here? I did wonder... Yeah, if there's one problem I feel like people might have is... It may or may not be seen as having a pacing problem. And the reason for that is because... in very gangster movie fashion, this movie is very episodic in nature.
Yeah.
Like, it's very, we're going to do this thing, that has closure, then we're going to do this thing, that has closure, and we just kind of do that, and every now and then things will kind of tie together, and eventually things will come back, and so on. It's very much like that, but if you don't mind that, like The Godfather. The Godfather is probably one of the most episodic movies of all time, but you don't see anybody hating it for that, because it just does it so well, and those little segments and intervals by themselves just work entirely, just as their own standalone thing, and the movie's just kind of populated with them. And while this isn't by any means Godfather tier type movie, it is a very, very solid movie. I had been hearing that it wasn't up to par with the likes of Gone Baby Gone in the Town and stuff like that. Obviously, The Town wasn't going to be top for me. I think Gone Baby Gone's better. It's probably about on par with how I feel about Argo, which is positive. I go back and forth on whether I love Argo or just kind of like it. Or, like it, yeah. I sell it short sometimes. But there is, I'm sorry, my notes are kind of hard to read here. But there was a question that still lingered to me while watching it that I had before it started, and then I heard that other people had, that I was able to, like, yeah, we agree. Of all the things that, you have to be really devoted to a book to adapt it.
That makes sense.
And you look at all the options, and you see the kind of filmmaker that Affleck is, and you look at this movie, and you look at this book, and honestly, you're kind of left wondering, this is good, but why this one? It seems like kind of a random choice.
Yeah, I'd say so.
And it's kind of like, I feel like there are much stronger and more hard-hitting movies stories he probably could have gone with. I'm very curious to know. I haven't really... if I watch interviews, I'm sure my question will be answered, but I am very curious as of now what drew him to this one. Because it feels very... I mean, it's good. It's very well handled. It's got some really colorful characters in it. But at the end of the day, it's just another gangster movie. And there's really, like, it has this and this and this, and it qualifies as a gangster movie. See, I'm very curious to learn what would even draw him to that. I'm now realizing what I couldn't read. It's something I already said, so we're good to go.
That's a good sign.
So, yeah, I do like it. I think the critical reception's kind of in the middle.
Yeah.
But it's better than in the middle. It's better than middling. So, yeah, some strong performances. There's one scene. There's one scene that's a little weird. I'm of course talking about the whipping scene.
Yeah.
It's like, this is bizarre.
Yeah, totally.
It's like, wow, it's still going. Okay, Chris Cooper, I think she's had enough. Okay. Yeah, and it gets weirder the longer it goes. The scene doesn't change. It's the same thing, but it's like, wow, just the longer it goes, the weirder it feels. It's like, okay, now we're past it. I know it's to show what kind of character Chris Cooper is.
Right.
Now he's like a religious fanatic, but still, it was like, that was weird. I'm glad we're past it. But yeah, still very solid. Not like, you know, it was number 2 on my most anticipated of the year. It's not that big. But, you know, it's very good still. I still like it a lot. Maybe that's my Affleck bias, I don't know, but or my gangster movie bias, I don't know, but it's still very good, very worth checking out, for sure. Alright, our last movie is going to be Lion. A movie I really wasn't that into going into it, except for the fact that my favorite actress, Nicole Kidman's probably going to get another Oscar nomination because of it. And I heard a lot of Slumdog comparisons. And of course, your first thought is, why? Because it stars Dev Patel. No. Very legitimate Slumdog comparisons here.
Oh, yeah.
It starts off, and we have the young version of who Dev Patel will grow up to be Dev Patel. And the child actor is, what is his name?
Sonny
something.
I'm trying to find it here.
And we got, like I've been saying all year, we're on a very good kick with child actors.
Oh, God, yes.
And he's definitely another one. That was so nice, their moment at the Golden Globes, too.
That was cool.
And we follow him, and he accidentally gets on a train and separated from his brother. And ends up 1,000 miles away from his home. Only trouble is, nobody else speaks his language, and he doesn't really remember where he lives. Specifically. So he eventually goes from place to place, much like Slumdog, comes across some very similar unsavory characters. There will be moments where he's trying to figure out what's going on, and it triggers flashbacks to his childhood. Yes, not just because Dev Patel's in it. The Slumdog comparisons are very founded.
Sunny Power.
And eventually he ends up, when he's still a kid, he ends up adopted by Nicole Kidman and David Wenham. Yeah, so Moulin Rouge reunion, even though David Wenham's in Moulin Rouge for like 10 seconds.
Hey, he's still there. That's all that matters.
And eventually he goes up into Dev Patel and then wants to find his parents. Once again, as I was talking about, so many incredible true stories this year.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't just mean incredible true story in the way a trailer does. I mean really incredible stories. Like even, I mean, you like to hate on it, but Hidden Figures. And then we got Patriots Day. I had a whole bunch of them in my head just now, and now they're just gone. But there are a lot of really, really good true stories this year. It's Hacksaw Ridge. Stories that you just can't believe haven't been told yet. Are coming out this year. And there's, so, when it goes on, yes, it's really kind of the second half of this movie that people are when people really get invested. But it's not really, you don't really realize just how much the first half is going to tie in. Because from then on, it basically turns into, like, he basically has to become his own detective to figure out his life.
Pretty much.
And it's an extremely engrossing story, especially when it gets to that point. Even when they throw the love story into it with Rooney Mara. And there's still, obviously it's going to be the whole, you know, you're so invested in this, you don't have time for me, you don't have time for this relationship, it's that. But that still has some really nice closure to it. And this movie, the entire second half of this movie is just it's really an emotional powerhouse. And as I was telling you, and I don't mean this in a bad way at all, the entire last half hour of this movie could be anybody's Oscar clip.
Oh yeah, totally.
It's really a lot. This was so much, I feel bad for how much I kind of ragged on this movie for being something I didn't think I'd be interested in before I saw it. Really, even the first half of it, when we're really just building to what's going to happen in the second half, it really feels like it's taking you on this journey before we get to even this point. And that whole argument is Dev Patel leading or supporting. It's like, then you realize, I actually looked just to see how long the movie's been on before Dev Patel actually shows up, it's 55 minutes. And the movie is an hour 58. So we get just about an hour in the second half, which is him kind of on this case for himself that he kind of gets obsessed with. And the whole thing is, everything in this movie is so well-meaning, too. Like, it's almost like, if it didn't make you so happy, you'd accuse it of being too happy. But it just really hits you in all the right places. Being true probably helps a lot. But it's just, and because there are those cases where we kind of feel like everything in this movie is well-meaning in one way or another, even if it seems kind of standoffish. And it always comes to, oh, well, this is what all this was leading to. Oh, why didn't you tell us? We're all understanding. Everybody's understanding. Everybody's great. And it just makes for some really good stuff, and really kind of something that, if this were a fictional movie, we'd be in cliche land. But this is one of those stories where the truth just finds its way through this and makes everything all the more, just makes everything better. Even that, like I said, even the relationship probably would have seemed shoehorned in any other movie, but somehow they make it work in this regard. And just the relationship's so sweet anyway. The whole thing where she's like, that scene where she's dancing down the sidewalk is the most animated I think Rooney Mara has ever been in her entire life.
I agree with that.
Like, I think that's the most kind of anything that she's shown as far as being a sign of life. No, I'm sorry, I won't hate on Rooney Mara. But yes. And then it's also one of those cases where we don't see the title at the beginning, and that's for a reason. And it's like, I thought that was a really big payoff, too, where you don't even think about that. You're like, huh, that's interesting, they didn't show the title. And then it's like, because they're saving that shit. It's like, oh, of course. It's like what Edgar Wright did with Hot Fuzz, where you don't see the title at the beginning, and Edgar Wright's response is, well, the movie's not really Hot Fuzz till the end, so you don't get the title till the end. Yeah. And I guess those opening scenes too are really good, because the child actor is so good. Like those scenes where it's where he's like, see, I can go with you because I can lift things and stuff like that. If there's one problem I have with the first half, it's that those subtitles could have been a little easier to read.
Yeah, I could see that.
Like, it's one of those cases where they didn't, like with Slumdog, when Danny Boyle had like the black backgrounds and they were on the side of the screen where you could see them, like even if it was in a corner or something. This is one of those movies where the white subtitles are sometimes on white backgrounds. It's like, I feel like a movie this good could have paid a bit more attention to that. Including Garth Davis, recent DGA nominee Garth Davis.
Out of absolute nowhere. Yeah,
which I have no problem with. Like, that's one of those things where you hear it and you're like, okay, I'm fine with that, actually. I don't think he's going to the Oscars, but
who knows now? It's up in the air, that fifth slot.
But yes, obviously Kidman is amazing. Like those scenes, any of the scenes, where we find out why exactly he was adopted, is a really powerful scene. And the scene where she's just kind of talking to him for the first time, like just the two of them, and it's like, those are really, she's just amazing. I'm really glad when she gets to actually show it and doesn't get just put into shitty movies with nothing parts. So yes, overall, definitely, I guess, I just feel bad that I did not give this movie, like, yes, this movie is absolutely worth seeing. Don't let anything about it stray you away from it, because it's definitely a crowd pleaser. It is so crowd pleasing.
Yeah, definitely.
But I mean that in a good way.
It would do really well in this area if we had it.
If they can get through the first half.
For a week.
Like we were talking, there was somebody in the theater, I think because of the first half, they thought they had accidentally walked into a horror movie and they left.
Yep.
It sucks to be them.
Yeah, no lie.
So yes. Yes. It's a very good video here.
It was an excellent video. Since I was rudely interrupted when I was talking about La La Land, we'll continue that conversation later on.
There we go.
Very
Not rude at all, by the way. Here we go.
Yes, it was.
I will give you star amounts and then we can leave.
So, next week is Triple X. I think it's the third one.
Yes. Second with Diesel.
And Split. And hopefully, knock on wood, something else. That's what there's a possibility. Let's see if it happens. So, that being said, real quick, before we end, start them out with Patriots Day.
3.5.
La La Land.
3.
Live by Night.
3.
Lion.
3.
Of course. Not surprising at all. So, it's another edition of
Did you
AJ.
stalk my IMDb account?
No, I'm not surprised based on what you said.
I see.
Yeah. But basically, someone else will try to find that one. The thing is, you put your foot in your mouth.
Good luck. Good luck.
Exactly. So that being said, this isn't the end of AJ content here on the network this weekend. Oh no, tomorrow we're going to go to this year, Monster Truck, Sleepless, and the Bye Bye Man.
I basically talked about Sleepless already, but won't do it again, I guess.
That'll be tomorrow. Versus, we'll play a little football on Sunday. So that'll be fun. Game with Ash returning on Monday, the Raw Podcast on Tuesday, the Wednesday podcast for wrestling on Wednesday, Sip and Snack on Thursday, and back here for Friday for another edition of AJ's Movie Reviews. That being said, if you like what you're seeing, like what you're hearing, Facebook fan page, as well as Zazzle for merchandise, and Twitter at Podcast Network, and of course, last but certainly not least, we also have Patreon at Podcast Network, all Podcast Network. So in the meantime, I want to thank you guys and girls out there for watching. And AJ, any parting words?
That's it.